Welcome back to Ketchup with Domtomato. This season, we've got episodes focusing on long-term injury, coming back from it, and the mental and emotional changes you deal with from going through it. This week's guest is Jason Paul, and I don't even know where to begin describing Jason. For me, he's always been somewhat of a mentor figure. He was an industry pioneer, being one of the first Redbull sponsored athletes. He's one of the creators and an active member today of Team Farang. He's also been an incredible member of the community, fostering many different opportunities and pathways for younger athletes. And he has a very different set of injuries to what the other guests we've spoken to so far. So let's get into today's show. I'm really excited. Here we go. Whoa! Boom! Personality turns on right now. All right. Nice. Well, yeah. Let's get into today's show. Jason, I'm so excited to have you on board. I mean, the last time we saw each other was on the shoot in Bangkok in Koh Chang. Was that, yeah? And you always impress me with the ability, like you always blow me away with how you are able to deliver on those shoots. I feel like that's like where you rise to the occasion so much is during those different shoots. Like you've got obviously your like old Red Bull shoots and stuff, but is there like, I don't know, you just smash it when it comes to like the performative execution of pieces and packages.
Thank you so much. I feel like I always performed well under pressure. Even when I would do live performances, I would usually do better in the actual performance than in practice. And I feel very lucky that it is like that. Same with contests where other people, you see them in practice, a lot of people doing competitions and they do so well. And I get so worried, like doing out of motions and stuff. I'd be like, oh no, all my stuff is not looking as good as these guys. And then I would do my run and it would go really well. And I do better than expected. And other people would fail at what they planned to do. And
had landed in practice.
Yes. Yeah. So I feel like nerve-wise, I perform quite well in front of the camera and an audience. I don't know why.
Yeah. It's something that I've really noticed over the last few years of watching your stuff is the thing that I think stands out the most is that like execution of not just like the movement, but the entire package, like how it's shot, how it's like focused, where all the points hit and that sort of thing. It's a very curated, like it always comes out in that really professional way. And I think that's a good strength to have for any sort of like online, or self freelance work, is that you can do that with multiple different photographers and videographers, no matter what the setting. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I always wanted to make it look as cool as it felt. I think we all have that experience where you do your first jump that you're kind of proud of, and then you film it and you're like, that looks terrible.
I still have that.
Well, it looked a lot smaller than you expected, for example. And then I would get like, oh, let me get a fisheye lens, let me get this, let me get that. And I was always into, okay, how do I make myself look good, basically? But
how do I showcase it?
Yeah, but as a byproduct, I think I managed to. I know how to make parkour look good now, whether it's my own movement or other people's movement, and I really enjoy that.
There's a huge aspect to being behind the camera and practicing that art to get good at that as well. Like it's not something you just like picked up and like, oh yeah, cool, I'm expert at shooting movement. It takes lots of, as you said, different like years of trying different stuff and practicing and changing the angle here and there. And it's like an intuitive learning as you're going through the process, I guess.
And for you, do you plan a line differently if you're just training versus if you know it's going to be filmed?
Not really. No, personally, I now that you say that, I think I will always just like come up with a line regardless of how, like, whatever shot it's going to be, and then be like, okay, let's film this. So it probably makes a difference.
That's interesting. Yeah, like for me, if I know it's going to be filmed, but my lines are also quite dancey sometimes, a lot of times. So I know for a certain trick, it will look good from a certain side. Like, for example, my aerials, I don't go straight over my head. So I know if you film them from behind, you're just going to see my back and my ass straight into the camera. If you film them from the side, it's going to be very noticeable. I'm not going properly over my head versus if you film the aerial facing my chest, they will look really good. Yeah. So I know whenever I put an aerial in a line, I will want the camera facing my chest. So
Okay.
I will think about, okay, if I'm doing an aerial, say I did a precision jump, I know a precision jump will look good from the side because that will make the jump look the biggest. And then if I do an aerial, it should be also facing that same direction. So I kind of try to piece it together with the camera in mind already of where it's going to
That's
be.
super interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, I never
So
really would have thought about. I guess like I have that with like front flips and like the staple moves that I do. I'm like I know this looks best from but most of the stuff I'm just like it looks best from the side really far away, which doesn't really count as like making it individual. I'm just like yeah, no, I just want to see it all. But yeah, I
I
guess
think
that
that
makes
makes
sense.
sense for you because you have these big jumps. So you don't have to compensate as much. I'm like, oh, my jumps are not that big. I got to make it like for you, what I like is, I guess the angles that you use is if I'm on set with someone, I would call it like an honest angle where it just really shows this is where I'm coming from, this is where I'm going, this is what's happening. There's no crazy camera tricks. It's just an honest angle of
Okay, I
what's
like
happening.
that. I like that terminology.
And I think I have to tell that to filmmakers sometimes because they want to get all fancy.
Hmm.
But especially for what you do, I feel like it's like Jackie Chan style honest angles. Like there's
Yeah.
no camera edits, tricks, or anything. There's no way you can fake this. And that's why it's the best for that, because people are like, oh, there's no crazy magic going on to trick me here. I can actually appreciate how impressive this is. And
Yeah,
I think
okay. I think
that's
that's a really nice way in the future to say that to production people or someone who doesn't necessarily work in the industry is like this is like an honest angle. It's really clear and showcasing the movement for what it is. So I like that terminology a lot.
Mhm. There's
But yeah,
nothing
to
you can
get
hide, right?
no, yeah. But to get into the I guess the bare bones of today is the big injury that you suffered was less of like a staple trademark parkour injury like an ACL tear or a busted shoulder or something. Would you want to explain to people what was going on there? What took you away?
Yeah. Well, what I had was it's called myocarditis, or could also be pericarditis, which if you had never heard about it before, great, I hadn't either.
It
And it's
sounds like
basically an
dinosaurs.
inflamed, it sounds like dinosaurs, much less fun than dinosaurs. It's basically an inflammation of the heart muscle. And I've had like my run-of-the-mill parkour injuries. Like I had my torn ligaments in my ankles 3 times. I've broken my arms. I've had plenty of bruises and a concussion as well. But
Mhm,
this was really the first injury that took me out for longer than 1 to 3 months.
mhm.
And it kind of took me from nowhere because I had never heard about it before. So the way you get an inflamed heart muscle is when you have a cold or any respiratory infection and you don't rest properly. And then that infection or inflammation can move from your respiratory organs down to your heart muscle, which then makes it really, really dangerous. But
Uh,
in my story, I didn't know that yet. In my story, I was traveling all across the world doing shoots and projects, going from one time zone to the next. Next to doing these projects, I was also shooting vlogs and creating my own content and editing it and doing
just
everything
full tilt.
and full on like sleeping like 4 to 6 hours a night, just hitting it super hard
Yeah.
and training on top of that, of course. And what happened was that I went from Japan to Bangkok, then went to Abu Dhabi for a location scout for 2, 3 days, then came back to Bangkok, stayed for a night, and then flew to
Nice.
Germany. And when I got to
Mm,
Germany, I was
so
like,
much airtime.
yeah, a lot of it. When I got to Germany, I was like, huh, I have this weird pressure in my chest. And I was kind of paranoid about um heart attacks because there was this one thing I read in a book once about how they don't feel as dramatic as you see them in movies.
Hmm.
So I
Can
decided, you
just
know
be a
what, I'll
pain.
just right. Like I was very mild of a feeling, and I was like, you know what, I had a nap, still didn't go away. It's always a good first measure, take a nap. Not with a broken leg, but anything
Yeah,
else,
yeah. No,
take a
it's
nap.
just take an app assessor when you wake up, if you wake up.
Yep. So still had that pressure on my chest and the chest pain. So I said, you know what, let's just go to the doctor. He'll tell me it's fine. Don't worry about it. And when we got to the doctor, I thought he would be very relaxed, but he got quite serious quite quickly. And did a
That
blood
weird
test.
tone shift. Like he's like, oh,
Right,
and
yeah.
face drops. You're like, oh,
Like,
yeah, something's coming.
yeah. So according to my blood values and my symptoms, and that I had respiratory infection a few months prior that I didn't properly rest through, he said it's most likely you have myocarditis, which is an inflammation of the heart muscle, which means you need to take 6 months off of any physical activity, including sex. So that was a very hard to swallow pill.
So you're just like, they're like, you need to be celibate for the foreseeable future. I hope you touched yourself this morning before you came in, at least 12 hours before you came in. But
I mean, depends on the position.
But if I lay very, very still and don't get excited, we can have great sex.
Yeah, so I was stripped of a lot of fun out of my life immediately for the next 6 months. And of course, as you can imagine with my schedule, I had like tons of shoots and projects and trips and everything planned. And I had to cancel all of that. But
Also,
yeah, that's
at
how I
that
found
time,
out.
parkour would have been also like at its highest intensity of like level, but also I'm sure like affection, which is what was driving the motivation. Like everything was really revolving around that and working really well, if I'm not mistaken. Would you say like
It was definitely revolving around it. It was, I don't know if it was working really well. I was definitely at the limit of what I could do and constantly scrambling to keep all the pieces together and keep it working. But
okay,
I was definitely busy working a lot, training a lot, traveling like crazy. So you could say I was like living the dream. I was doing tons of stuff. And
yeah,
but I think I was just also hitting it too hard, which we can get into what I think caused me to get the inflamed heart muscle. Like, of course, I had a respiratory issue and I didn't properly rest, but also my whole mentality was just like, push through it, go as hard as I can. And I think all of those factors came together, and ultimately this, I guess, this sickness, I don't know if it's a sickness, this infection taught me the lesson that I
injury.
need to find
It's
a
a muscle
balance, right?
injury.
Injury, yeah. It's a muscle injury, yeah. That I need to kind of find a balance. That was later we can get a little bit, I guess, to the lessons I learned from this. But obviously the first thing was, oh shit, okay, I can't do parkour for 6 months.
Yeah, what's
Which
next?
is right. And that's always when you have an injury, it's never like the injury is not the terrible thing. It's not like, oh no,
Yeah,
this hurts so much. Or it's no, what does this mean for
for
my
output.
career, for my work, for my livelihood, for my passion? You're like, damn, this is not just hurting right now. This is gonna impact me for the next how long? I don't know.
Yeah,
Will I ever
ripples.
be the same?
Yeah, that's a big fear. I think that even with I wouldn't say the ankles are as severe, but I've had a similar time period where I wasn't able to perform, and it was fearful of like, will this be my forever? Will I just now? Am I now? And I guess in your case, are you just heart muscle guy and can't like am I just cameraman Jason? Am I just like it? Yeah, changes your self identity a bit. I guess. Do you feel like you went through that?
Mm, I think I just really had to reframe what I was doing, right? Because before it was so centered around my physical health that was keeping everything together because I was performing in front of the camera, behind the camera, traveling, doing all these things.
Yeah.
But it was all not completely tied around my physical health because the vlogs had a big storytelling aspect that necessarily didn't always involve me doing parkour, but most of it was.
Yeah.
So I
That's
really had to think about that's
that's what
kind
it
of the
is.
key component. Yeah. So I really needed to reframe what I was doing and what I was going to do with the next 6 months, basically, because I realized, okay, for 6 months, I'm definitely going to be off. What am I going to do? So first of all, I had to cancel everything, which was not very great. I had to be like, sorry,
Oh,
I
a
know
lot
I
of
said I was going to be
calls.
there in a week. Yeah.
Oh,
And cancel a lot of trips. But the good thing is, I had been injured before, and I knew that there are these periods where I can't rely on parkour being my activity. I always had these
the be all and
other
end
things I
all.
was into.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I think if you really are the person where parkour is like the one thing in your life, and then you lose that, that can be really, really difficult, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I always had these side passions. I was into filmmaking and videos and editing. I was trying to learn Japanese. And I just decided, okay, cool. I can't do parkour right now. Actually, I'm not allowed to do any physical activity right now. So I completely switched off that part of me in a way where
Okay.
looking back, I feel like I could have stretched, I could have done a little bit, but I
But it
was
just
like,
cold
okay, no.
turkey, no movement, no
Yeah.
activity.
Hmm.
Yeah. No, it's a bold way to hit it, I think.
Yeah, I feel like I had to. There's this quote from a monk that is like abstination's easier than moderation, and I feel like that's true for me. For me, it's easier to with everything. I can't just do a little bit of something. If I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna eat. For me, eating is a really hard thing. If I say
Hmm.
I'm just gonna eat a little bit of candy today, I'm like, yeah, no. Once I open
Yeah.
the door, it's so much harder to then control that urge. So it's
Yeah.
easier for me to just say like, no, I'm just gonna not do it at all.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like I would say that similar for me with alcohol. I found like last year or the year before I started, having a few drinks, and then I was drinking multiple times a week, and it was just getting there was no filter as to thing. But as soon as I'm not drinking,
Mm,
it's so easy to just not. I just refer to myself as
yeah.
not a drinker, and I don't drink alcohol. Like and then going into a bar, or whatever, like no, and it's like that part of you is just not there. So it's interesting you're able to do it with movement.
Well, I had to. Unfortunately, I was not happy
No,
about it,
yeah.
but I was like, ah, shit. I just have to focus on these other aspects of my personality, I guess, or my interests. And
Hmm.
it was still like if anybody ever goes through the same myocarditis thing, it was they had to the thing with myocarditis is it's an inflammation of the heart muscle, right? So the dangerous thing is if you get your heart rate up, then your heart could sort of glitch because of the inflammation in the
Ah,
tissue,
okay. So it's not
and then it will
necessarily
start
like
of
overload, but something might go amiss because of the size of it, or like the way it's going through those inflamed channels.
yeah, it can just lose that beating rhythm. So what happens is
Okay.
that it then will kind of beat frantically without actually pumping any blood, which just means you drop dead basically.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I knew it was a lot easier to refrain from any exercise where knowing that if I might just drop dead. And
Yeah, it's not
there's
like a
a
pulled leg or like a strain where you're like, oh, I'm feeling the extra, like, I'm overloading this slightly, and you can like build that resistance back up. You kind of like, I can't tell. I could be like,
right.
anytime I get it up, I could be ruining the
Yeah.
muscles. That's crazy. Yeah, it's a totally different
And
mental place to be in.
that's the dangerous thing about the myocarditis is that like my house doctor works at the Frankfurt Marathon, the marathon in my city, and he says every year 1 to 2 people die because if you can be young and healthy, you can have it without any symptoms, and once you get the once your heartbeat kind of glitches, then if there's not a paramedic right next to you with the what's the electric thing called that to
Defibrillator.
get your heart going? Yeah, that
Defibrillator.
thing.
Yeah.
If these not doesn't happen to be right next to you, you're basically done.
Yeah, there's no real coming back, like going to the hospital and, like 40
Yeah,
minutes on what, yeah, it's a quick switch off. And I think it's so, as you say, hard to know if you're someone like a marathon runner and you're just pushing through and you're like, oh yeah, I feel a little chest pain or whatever, like maybe it's a bit cold. It's really hard to know those limitations for internally. So it's kind of good that you were switched on about heart stuff in general. Like, oh, I should get this checked, because if you hadn't had that predilection, it might not have gone like to get it checked. And I think that's a really important thing for people to it's being like ahead of potential threats that is the real winner there. You know, making sure that you are listening to your body and taking it seriously enough at any avenue, be that a rolled ankle or be that your heart feeling funny.
I 100% agree. Like for me, it easily could have said, "Oh, this is fine," and the symptoms did disappear. Like the chest pain did disappear a few days after. It's not like I had this constant chest pain. I had it after the trip, and if I would have not gone to the doctor, I would have never known I have an inflamed heart muscle,
Mm-hmm.
and I probably would have keep going like crazy,
At
and I
that
probably would
pace.
have dropped dead on some shoot or something or training session.
Yeah.
Like
So,
it's
so you know,
scary.
some other, yeah, horrifying avenue, you know, where it involves your heart giving out and changing the way you live in a more dramatic way. So there's, yeah, so many so many negatives that can be had from not listening to those things and being on top of it. There's just, yeah, potential risks. We're so fragile. They're so fragile. Is there any rehab you can do for myositis?
You
I'm
basically just
listening.
have to wait. The hard thing is that you can't really tell when it's gone, because the only way you can even confirm myocarditis 100% is you can go into your heart with a little, what do you call it? You pluck out
Camera.
a piece of the heart muscle,
Oh, like a
like a little
tweezers.
tweezer, like a little
Oh,
tweezer, right? You would go in, you would pluck out a piece of your heart muscle, and then you can find out if it's inflamed and what kind of inflammation exactly it is. But they don't really do that usually because it's really quite invasive, and you can usually tell by the symptoms that you have myocarditis. The thing is, if you wanted to check if my myocarditis is gone, you could try to pluck out a piece of my heart muscle, but the inflamed piece of the heart muscle might be on the other side. So you might pluck out a piece that's not really inflamed, the way I understood it.
mm-hmm.
And so there's not really a sure way to say you're healed from it. You kind of just got to wait. And
So
then at the end
basically,
of
you
the
had
wait
an
period,
imaginary heart problem, is what you're admitting on camera now. Is that it was all hoaxy?
I
It's
was
it's
just,
mythical.
yeah, I was trying to create this drama story for my
Adversity.
vlog to have a comeback. I realized I don't really have a comeback story in my life yet.
You need that journey. So it's just self-imposed adversity.
Yeah, it's just you become more relatable to your audience if you have a good comeback story, you know?
Oh mate, yeah. I feel like, yeah. So the minimum wait is 6 months. Is that the like the minimum they say, or?
That's usually they gave me 6 months, and then after I think 4 or 5 months, I did a test where they have you ride on a bike and monitor your heart while you do it, and they
Mm-hmm.
basically said you're good, but I still would have symptoms on and off, and
Like chest
a
pain.
lot of the like chest pain, and of course when you have it, you become hyper aware of your heart. So
Mm-hmm.
I got like an Apple Watch to monitor my heartbeat,
I
and
almost
that
killed
helped
you
me a
during the
little
on
bit.
25.
Yeah, I had to carry you up a flight of stairs because
I
you
can
injured your
remember
heel.
the spike in the you showed me the graph when we are at the hospital, and it's like normal, 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 spiking heart rate, normal, normal, normal. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
dangerous. It's dangerous for multiple
yeah.
people.
Oh yeah. So for anybody who doesn't know, when Dom front flipped the famous staircase in France, he injured his heel, and I was like, I got to get him to the hospital. So I carried
And
you up
you're at the,
those
yeah, bottom.
25 steps.
Those 25 step, yeah, I front flipped down in one single bound, and then Jason carried me back up in 50 odd steps as we
I was
got
like, I
back
thought
up to the top.
maybe Dom will die doing this jump, not me. I'm just filming.
I wasn't even meant to be here, man. um,
Oh.
so when you started coming back into training, was it like, okay, now I can move again full throttle, or did you, as you said, with the symptoms, kind of dabble in, pull your feet back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or what was the process there?
Um, well, I was aware that the biggest or the most risky time to do parkour is probably right after you're coming back from an injury, because you just want to get back to where you were as quickly as possible. You are not quite in touch with your body anymore as you were, so it's really easy for you to push too quick or make a mistake or just be compensating for your um inability, let's say.
Yeah, something's
So
not
I was
activating properly, so you're doing a different muscle interchange, or you're not
Mhm.
hitting the jump with the same arc you were, so it's jamming on your body, stuff like that.
Exactly. You're just
Mm.
not that fine touch is not there. And also you're impatient because you're like, I already waited for like 6 months. I want to
And
move
I
again.
know
And I
how
want
good
to
I was. I know where I
Mhm.
was at.
So you're chasing, so you just want to get back to at least where you were, right? And you're like,
Mm.
ah. So I was trying to curb my enthusiasm and really hold myself back and take it slow and do strength training and do all that. And I was also still quite paranoid to do any cardio. Like it took me really after like 5 months, they told me I was good, but I still waited an extra 2, 3 months because I was still not feeling
Even to
quite
start
there.
lightly pushing into the
Mhm.
cardio realm. Okay.
Yeah. I went to another doctor in Thailand actually to get my heart checked again, who said I was fine. And I was like, okay, cool. I feel better now. So I slowly get
Mhm.
into it. But then for the next 2 years, I completely avoided all cardio. Like anything, I was still worried about it. And
Okay.
I don't like cardio to begin with. So it was a great excuse to have. Like, let's
But
be
when
honest.
you say cardio, does that mean avoiding like runs that were plus upwards of a certain time frame and like trying to compact your movement into smaller digestible bites, or was it like you just wouldn't do running, swimming, cycling, anything that was lengthy?
Both. Like definitely
Okay.
not any running, but also long parkour lines. And then sometimes I would do a shoot, and on the shoot they're like, we need just this sprinting shot of you, like, and you're just sprinting behind a cameraman who's sitting in a
Yeah.
car, and you're just like, damn. So I would dread those, but I would still do those because I knew, in theory, the doctor said I was safe, but also I want to listen to my body, and if I don't feel quite there, I'm like, I
Yeah.
want to take it easy. And then I went to this heart specialist. I got to go to this heart specialist in Austria because he's connected to the Redbull Athlete Performance Center they have. And
Hmm.
he told me, like, you're fine. Like, go do whatever you want. And I was like, cool. And since then, I feel a lot better. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that
Hmm.
that really helps. Even my physio here, when I started to go see him, and I was really worried initially, and just having him be like, "No, like your ankles are fine. You've just got to do this and this and this to get it back. Like they're not permanently damaged." And hearing a professional say, like,
Hmm.
"You're good, man. It's just a process." It helps
Hmm.
digest that a lot, and even like also say speaking to you in Kochang when we did the Red Bull shoot. That was really helpful for me because it was right at the peak period of like the extent of the injuries, like 8 months or something into it. And I was in my head, I was like, I'm better. And just talking to you about like where the journey goes, and also having a more appreciation for what's been done as opposed to just always looking for the next thing, gave me a lot of perspective on uh yeah, like how to deal with and how to cope with the difference in rhythm of training.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned when you get injured. Of course, it's nice to never have to learn those lessons when you get injured. But I think it is an opportunity to like when I had that, when I got the news that this is what I have to deal with, I have to take a break for 6 months. I was thinking, well, this is interesting. I already know from previous injuries, I knew it was not a good idea to tie my self-worth to my physical performance,
Hmm.
which I think is something that if you start parkour as a teenager, kind of naturally happens because you're able to do these amazing things. You're like, look how good I am. I managed
You
to
get
work hard
affirmation
to
for it.
have these abilities.
Yeah.
Right. So you're kind of like, I'm getting all this positive feedback for my abilities. But
Hmm.
of course, they won't be with you forever. So I think it was important for me to learn I'm not I'm not a valuable person or a um I'm not who I am because I can do those things. I am who I am because I worked so hard and became the person who did those things, even if I then can't do them anymore, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There's a respect and appreciation to the process and the journey that you've gone through, regardless of what the result is today. It just
Mhm.
because you could do this 2 years ago and can't do it now doesn't mean you're not growing or progressing or getting better. They're just different avenues that you've pursued or different journeys that you've gone through?
Right. Like, let's say you run a marathon. It's not like you have to now run a marathon every day to be this person who ran a marathon. It's like, no, you worked really hard. You become a stronger, more resilient, more mentally and physically tough person. And you don't have to keep doing the same challenge. You don't have to maintain that skill to keep that personal growth with you. Of course, you want to challenge yourself in other ways to still stay tough or strong or whatever values you
whatever status
get
quo
from
you're
that.
giving yourself.
But it's okay to let go of those skills, is what I found for myself. So when I got that news, it wasn't so much like a big ego hit necessarily, or self-worth depression thing, which I don't tend to get very sad anyway.
Super happy Jason.
But it was for me like a period where I said, well, this is interesting. I can't do anything for 6 months, but it's not like I'm on crutches or anything. It's not like I have to, because normally when I have an injured ankle, I'm like, I'm going to work on my handstands, or I have an injured wrist, I'm going to work on my precision jumps. Like, there's always
Bouncing
something I
around
can
somewhere.
do. With this, I was like, this is strange. I actually can't do anything. So I told myself, well, how about I get like a little bit of a taste of what my life could look like one day when I'm not an athlete anymore.
Okay.
So that's kind of what I used those 6 months for, is to just do other things and other projects, be more behind the camera. And we did the US tour together, and I was just filming. It's like I still decided to come.
Still got the most commented clip in the video from swinging the camera around and wiping your hands and catching it. Like, everyone else did sick action, but that got the most comments.
You know, I got to get to attention somehow.
Yeah, still killing it. So, I mean, you've seen a big shift in your, like, I mean, you've always had like a dancey, flowy style, but you've now taken on break dancing and that evolution. Do you feel like that shift came about from this transformative state, coming back into movement and playing with it in a different way? Or is that something that came on later and just is a natural byproduct of your growth?
I think that was more a result of COVID, to be honest.
Okay.
I think I was always into it, but I was so busy, I never felt like I could allow myself the time to really dive into that, because there was always another shoot, another project that I wanted to be able to perform well in. So when COVID happened, I had a lot more free time. I couldn't really go to the gym. I couldn't really travel. And I connected with some local B-boys here, and I just really got into it.
Yeah.
But I always was interested in it.
So was there a shift coming back from the heart disease, training, injury, whatever you want to call it, from the heart? Was there a change in your training approach and training style that was apparent?
I
And
think
it's fine if not.
yeah, it's really hard for me to tell, because I feel like so many things happened at the same time. Because I think after the injury, I still wanted to get back to where I was. I wanted to be able to move well. And that still was a journey in itself, because I think I got like 3-4 months down the road and everything was going really well, and then my right ankle flared up like crazy, and I again had to cancel a bunch of shoots and had to really take my time. Like, I couldn't jump up like off of my right ankle. I couldn't bounce up like 1 or 2 flights of stairs. It was, couldn't do anything. So I
give out.
really need to sort that out, and that took me quite a while. And I think now I've gotten back to a level where I'm really able to enjoy my body and move pain-free and worry-free without the heart inflammation in the back of my mind. Still comes sometimes. Like the other day I was at the gym and I was like, oh no, my chest pain is back. And then after like 30 minutes, I realized I had pulled a muscle in my back and I was feeling it.
To layer
the
up.
same. Yeah. I was like, so it's still like there a little bit, but I feel like I'm probably got a new appreciation of being able to enjoy to move. And I think I've probably shifted my mindset a lot more to, I want to do moves that I actually enjoy. Because I think in parkour, there's a lot of tricks that, like a double full, you do it and you're really happy you did it, but it's not like while you're doing the double full, you can really
It's a lot of
enjoy
effort.
that experience.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I do punch up, rotate, tense my butt, hold in. Yeah, it's just too much going on. That's why I do diving front flips or dive rolls, because it's just like you run, you launch, and there is no more factors. It's so simple.
So simple. Simple, safe.
So, looking forward to the next year for you, what's on the cards for 2023? You're going to be at the summer jams, you're competing, you're judging. What's the criteria for Jason?
I think I'm kind of entering a next chapter of my life as an athlete, where it's becoming less about these performance peaks and these peak video projects. I'm really happy with all of those I got to do, and now I'm kind of ready to start something new. And I think it's going to be a little bit more educational, a little bit more storytelling based, still around parkour and movement, but I'm excited to branch into like dancing and pole dancing and other movements a little bit and play more. So I think I'm going to be less focused on like a certain type of movement and allow myself to experiment more on like the movement side. I want to travel less because I want to have a more of a regular training routine and really find my
Okay, cool.
balance. That's still like the theme for me, is I have to find like a work-life balance with family, with training, and content again. I want to do YouTube again. I want to do Instagram again, but just in a new way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you've got a passion, clearly a passion for making videos, and I feel like a lot of people really connected with those vlogs, and they were quite transformative for a lot of young people who are watching them. And I think you're finding a way to showcase yourself and also give value like that is really important. It would be nice to see a rebirth on the Jason Paul YouTube.
I'm excited for it. I always felt like, oh, I'll be an athlete for a certain time and then I'll have to do something completely different. And during the last years, I realized like, oh wait, there's no reason it really has to stop. So it's now I'm trying to figure out what that next chapter will look like. So it's gonna
Yeah,
be some
it's
experimenting
interesting.
this year.
When do you think you came to that train of thought about like it can stay within the realm or stay within the industry per se? Was that recent or a
Not
couple of years?
maybe within the last 1 or 2 years, I've really, because it was just such a thing where I realized I can't do this forever. One day I will have to probably find a real job or do something different or
Such a
whatever.
different mindset. I've always been like, I'm going to do this forever. And I think like probably 4 or 5 years ago, I would have comfortably said, I will do, even if I'm not doing like high end sport in this industry forever, I will forever be doing something based in like parkour sport movement for thing. Like I just had made that distinction. Like, so it's nice to hear that you're in the same train of thought there. Like, yeah, there is avenues and opportunities to grow and spread a different message through the sport while still having like ties and roots within the community and all these friends that you've fostered for years and years, you still get to be a part of everything, still involved, just offering your insight in a different way.
And I think we're also lucky that we're in a sport where it is about performance, but also it's a lot about just cool ideas and creativity and the expression and the community. And I think if you can provide value there, it's not like you have to run the 100-meter sprint any faster to be relevant. It's not like you have to jump higher. There's so many more ways you can give value to the world of parkour and the culture of parkour that it doesn't have to be performance based. Of course, it can be, but if you look at someone like Jimmy the Giant, who's really done a great job adding to the parkour culture and building his profile
Yeah.
in an authentic way, I'm like, okay.
Well, this is a great time, I think, also like great casual segue to give a little bit of plug to your video courses that you've been doing. Have you finished shooting them now as of shooting this?
I'm almost done. I just finished the last lesson, so now I'm gonna do a little. Thank you for the plug, by the way. I'm
Of
gonna do a
course.
little. I'm gonna do a little rework of my beginner course, which I'm really happy how it turned out. It's a huge level up from the free one I have on YouTube, and it goes into a lot more detail. It's a lot smoother of a journey for beginners, especially if they're not as fit. And yeah, I'm gonna rework it now and hopefully be able to re-release it in maybe a month. So
Awesome.
Instagram, you'll hear about it, and
That'll probably be
levelsmethod.com.
before. Sorry, I just spoke completely over where to find it. You say that from the top.
My Instagram and levelsmethod.com.
Perfect. Yes, head over there. This will probably actually be this podcast will probably come out after he's done that, because it's looking to be released in about a month and a half, and he said there's a month. So ideally, Jason, now you have a deadline. If that it's not out by this podcast, you're behind the crunch. Pressure's on.
Damn it. I'm gonna miss out. Okay, I can do it.
You can do this. I believe in you. But yeah, just thank you so much for coming on and really getting into the depths of those journeys and things you've gone through, and sharing those stories, because I think it is really valuable for not only younger athletes, but also just anyone going through those processes, regardless of if it's parkour, if you've got something that's taking you away from your passion and you need to deal with that. It's nice to have conversations around it and open up those channels. So I really appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you. It's really fun to talk about it, because usually we share the highlights, right? And then it's like, no, this is an important part of most athletes' journey. And I think if you never heard that other people go through it, it can be quite jarring.
Yes, yeah, it can be. It can feel like a lonely experience, and so that's the main, I guess, goal of these podcasts, is to really just get those stories across and have people be able to relate and understand and feel included in it. And so if you all feel included, share it with your friends. You can find Jason on his Instagram at I am Jason Paul, and you can find us at Team Farang on YouTube.
Thank you so much for having me on. Good time.
Yeah, all right, let's do it. Peace. Cool.
Bye.
Bye. Nice. That was